Well, the great guessing game over when this year's election will be held is starting to have knock-on effects for other crucial government decisions. The Attorney-General has offered a considered view on when the plebiscite for same-sex marriage will be held. George Brandis set out a timeline for the plebiscite to be held this year. But no sooner had the Attorney outlined that process than government figures were casting doubt on it, pointing out that the vote would depend on when the general election is held.
So, were the government to be re-elected, there will be a plebiscite. The plebiscite will occur before the end of this year. The bill to constitute the plebiscite will be introduced early in the life of the new parliament, so as we can have the plebiscite before the end of this year. And in the event that there were to be a yes vote, the government would legislate to give effect to the wishes of the people.
This is a cabinet decision, is it, that the plebiscite will be before the end of this year, after the election, before the end of this year?
That is what we have in mind to do, yes.
Plebiscite will be held as soon as practicable after the election. We would like the election to be held in the normal time frame. That's around September this year. That's our intention. But of course there are a range of real factors around the dysfunction of the Australian Senate. The government's intention is to go full term if we can, bearing in mind there are those important issues around the dysfunction of the Senate.
Well, that might appear contradictory or confusing, but are George Brandis's thoughts on the timing of the plebiscite at odds with government thinking on the general election that must precede it? Well, the attorney's in North Queensland today, and from there he maintains that he and the Prime Minister are on the same page when it comes to elections and plebiscites.
Well, the Coalition decided as long ago as August last year that the issue of same-sex marriage should be resolved by the people at a plebiscite. That policy has been confirmed after the election to the leadership of the government of Mr Turnbull. As I said yesterday, there will be a plebiscite early in the life of the next parliament. Mr Turnbull said yesterday that it should be as soon as possible after the election. There's no difference between Mr Turnbull and me in relation to timing. That will be a matter to be dealt with and decided by the people, as it should be decided by the people early in the life of the next parliament.
Did you consult with the PM before declaring the poll would be by the end of the year yesterday?
I speak to Mr Turnbull all the time.
On this issue?
I speak to Mr Turnbull on a range of issues, including this issue, all the time.
Why was the disparity between you declaring it would be the end of the year and him saying it would be in the new
I'm sorry, I don't think there was any disparity whatsoever. I said that we want to have this by the end of the year. Mr Turnbull said he wanted it to be as soon as possible after the election. I don't think those are inconsistent positions.
Is it something that there needs to be a timeline, a time put on when it will be held?
Well, those announcements will no doubt be made closer to the time, and the design and architecture of the plebiscite will be decided closer to the time. But the Australian people will know that in the event the coalition were to be returned to government, they will have the final decision on this vexed issue, and that opportunity will be as soon as possible after the next election.
Some coalition members have said that even if a plebiscite votes in favour, they won't necessarily vote in favour on the floor of Parliament.
Well, that's fine. I said in my contribution to the long discussion we had in our party room about this last August that I thought that this should be a matter of individual conscience. I haven't changed my mind. If there were members of the coalition who conscientiously felt that they couldn't vote in favour of same-sex marriage, notwithstanding the eventuality of a yes vote at the plebiscite, I think that's entirely a matter between them and their conscience, and they're perfectly entitled to exercise their conscience.
Do you believe that there's time for one by the end of the year because there'll be an election in July?
Well, as the Prime Minister said yesterday, we don't know when the election is. No decision has been made as to when the election will be, but we know the election is not very far away.